You're watching Asian American Life. I'm your host, Ernabelle DeMillo. It's that festive time of year where many of our friends and family may wear fashion celebrating our cultural heritage. For example, in the South Asian community, many women may wear a sari. Well, now the sari and its history are on full display right here at the New York Historical. I'll have more on that coming up. Plus, Mahjong makes a comeback and the healing powers of kimchi. Mahjong, it's not your grandmother's game anymore. Today's generation is making it cool again. From emergency room to the C-suite, meet the man leading one of the largest healthcare systems in New York. CUNY's Asian American Media Initiative looks at the changing landscape of news. And it's National Kimchi Month. Why is this 1,000-year-old Korean recipe cooking up headlines? This and more on Asian American Life.
There are more than 500,000 South Asians in New York City, and the heart of the community is right here in Jackson Heights, Queens, where you can find a sari of any color. Now this artistry and the South Asian diaspora is being celebrated in a new exhibit called the New York Sari.
At the New York Historical, saris are on display to unfold the story of the South Asian community.
A sari is a 6 to 9 yard single length of fabric that is draped around the body in many different ways. It originates in the Indian subcontinent, but through diaspora is worn all around the world, including here in New York. And so we can use the sari as a single object that can tell us so many different stories about community building and about identity and about the changing cultural fabric of New York City.
The story of the sari in New York stretches back to the 1700s, when South Asian textiles were imported by ship, long before South Asians themselves were welcomed on these shores.
Our oldest object that we have in the gallery is from 1720. So there wasn't the same welcoming of South Asian people as South Asian textiles until really later in the 20th century.
Among the museum's stories, the trailblazers who wore the sari while breaking barriers, including a South Asian woman who came to study medicine at the Women's Medical College of Pennsylvania as early as 1883, and those who followed in their footsteps.
What we have next to the photograph is a sari that belongs to Dr. Lalita Krishnan, who came to the United States after the Hart-Celler Act in 1965, ended up working for a pharmaceutical company, making some really important scientific breakthroughs, wearing her sari often at work.
And she happens to be the mother of New York City Councilman Shekhar Krishnan, who represents Jackson Heights, Queens.
My mom would always say the silk here is better, the clothing
Really?
here is better. Yeah.
So you'd come here.
I'm really glad that this exists because now it's not just an Indian population that needs Indian clothing, right? If you're
Right.
going to an Indian wedding, like people, or
You
Diwali
went
or
here.
a party, or people
Yeah.
want to dress up.
All right, let's go in.
All right, okay.
Let me open the door.
This is where I met up with Mitra Kalita. She's the co-founder of URL Media and the publisher of Epicenter, a hyper-local news site.
My dad immigrated here in 1971, and for the most part, this was a Greek neighborhood before it shifted to South Asian. So you used to have tons of cassettes, CDs, videos, VCDs eventually. That was like a huge part of what this strip was, because your connection to home was the music and being able to play the movie. So Bollywood, it's not just about the shopping and the things that you need, it really is connecting with your community.
Kalita says the exhibit at New York Historical began by accident, over lunch.
So our city councilman is Shekhar Krishnan. He's the first Indian American elected to New York City office. Shekhar invited me to lunch with Louise Mirror, who's the CEO of the New York Historical. I had just downsized both my in-laws and my parents' homes. And I found countless saris as I was doing this. And I said, I just didn't know what to do with it. And we were just talking about like what this garment has meant to our community and how it's not just a costume. There's a lot of memory and tradition and history within.
That conversation became a collaboration between the museum, community journalists and local artists to celebrate a garment that connects countries, religions, and continents.
I have a very complicated relationship with the sari. First of all, it is hard to put on. It is 6 yards, but it does feel like home. You know, when we were going back to India, my mother would put a sari on because that's what she wanted her family to see when she was coming home. And there was something about that that felt really symbolic. Maintaining that tradition is like maintaining a piece of yourself.
For Kalita, each sari tells a story of weddings, children, blessings, and loss.
It's impossible for me to tell you the story of a sari and what it means to me without going into my wedding, my children, my mother. And I can't think of any other type of clothing that kind of has both that universality, but also such individual stories attached to each of them.
We feature several examples of the intergenerational connections that the sari has. So one of those features is a 27-print lino-cut series by the Brooklyn-based artist Chitra Ganesh. It's illustrating a short story from 1905 by a Bengali feminist named Rokeya Hossein. And the novel is called Sultana's Dream. It's a sort of feminist utopia, imagining a world without men.
From 18th century trade routes to 21st century art, the sari continues as an act of resistance.
You know, we are under assault for the way we look. And Shahana Sen, who's a city councilwoman from Brooklyn, she's Bangladeshi, she describes the sari as a maximalist garment. And I thought, what better time than now when we're supposed to be shrinking ourselves for us to actually say, you know what, we're maximal people, right? We have 6 yards of cloth, sometimes 9 yards of cloth, super colorful, like bejeweled up the wazoo. You cannot hide us, right? We are here. And so I also am so proud of this exhibit because it just asserts that we are here, we've been here, and we will be here.
The New York Sari exhibit at New York Historical is open through April 26, 2026. For Asian American Life, I'm Rainer Ramirez.
Do you hear that sound? Well, that's the sound of Mahjong, the sound from my childhood. And that sound is making a comeback. Here's more. If you're an Asian American of a certain age, this sound may bring back childhood memories.
I call it Asian ASMR or Chinese ASMR just because it's the sound that's so beautiful, it's so relaxing. It's also the sound that if you're like a Chinese millennial like I am, you hear your parents playing all the time. Once a sound coming from basements, back rooms, and the occasional Asian kitchens, now echoes across hotels, bars, and brunch tables. Mahjong is in the middle of a renaissance. Last year, there was a 179% increase in Mahjong events across the U.S., according to Eventbrite, a ticketing website. And Mahjong's popularity continues to grow. Randi Lee hosts a monthly Mahjong event at his Brooklyn restaurant, Leland Eating and Drinking House. It all started in 2021 when his family came to visit after the COVID lockdown.
We hired a Mahjong master to have a private lesson for us to learn how to play, something that was going to connect us more to our roots and where we came from.
That single event led to a monthly social. It's an ode to Leland Chin, Lee's great uncle and the restaurant's namesake, who enjoyed playing Mahjong with his family.
I remember the chirping, the tiles tapping, knowing that we couldn't get into the room because if they would go downstairs with packs of cigarettes and you'd open up the room and there'd be a waft of smoke coming out of there.
The tapping tiles is a memory many people of Asian descent have, whether you are Chinese, Japanese, or Filipino.
It was my mom and my grandmother who kind of led that circle. So it would be a lot of my mom's coworkers and then my grandma's friends. They would come over, there'd be a big spread of food, and after eating, they would begin playing. And they would go late into the evening. I would go out and come back home at like 2 in the morning, and I would open the garage and they would still be in the garage, still mixing the tiles.
These days, that sound from our childhood can be heard on any given Wednesday at Leland's popular Mahjong and dim sum afternoons, led by Mahjong master Lenny from the Green Tile Social Club. Today's lesson, in fact, is sold out.
We're gonna play an open-handed game. So we're gonna break up into our 4 teams of 3, and then we're gonna play an open-handed game.
Historians say the modern Mahjong we play today was born in 19th century China. It's been said that the Qing dynasty's Empress Dowager Cixi played Mahjong at the Summer Palace. When Mahjong came to the U.S. in the 1920s, it was marketed as a game of the ancient royal Chinese court. Ironically, it was introduced during a time of heightened xenophobia and anti-Asian sentiment in the U.S.
Marketers explicitly connected the game to this game of Confucius, game of the Mandarins, which was a Chinese court official, and explicitly said it was not a modern game, not a game connected to contemporary Chinese people or Chinese immigrants. And that was not true, but it worked. It became part of the widely held myth of its origins.
Mahjong quickly spread across the U.S. Wealthy society women even dressed in Chinese costumes while playing. But it was the Jewish community who are credited for helping the game's widespread adoption. In 1937, a group of Jewish women founded the National Mahjong League, which standardized an American style of play. Today, it is young Asian Americans like Lenny who have helped to revitalize Mahjong while re-engaging with their Asian roots.
And you got it! So...
Says he grew up trying to hide his Asianness. Today, he reconnects with his family history by teaching the game of his parents, Hong Kong style.
Hong Kong is the style that is the most, I guess, adopted around the U.S. because the first immigrants to the U.S. were from the harbor cities. So you think of Hong Kong, you think of Guangzhou, and those are the places that kind of made the Chinatowns, and that's where it kind of spread.
Hollywood has also played a part in Mahjong's renaissance.
My mom taught me how to play. She told me Mahjong would teach me important life skills.
Maybe that sound, the clack of tiles, isn't just a game. Maybe it's a language, one our parents and their parents spoke to each other, and we're finally learning to listen. For Asian American Life, I'm Ernabelle DeMillo. I'm Kyung Yoon at Bellevue, America's oldest public hospital and a cornerstone of medical history, which made a different kind of history this year when Dr. Eric Wei became its CEO, the first Asian American to lead this iconic institution.
This one of my favorite pictures of Kermit the Frog.
Dr. Eric Wei may lead the nation's largest public hospital system, but a Muppet portrait in his office is a reminder of where he came from. Born in America as a son of Taiwanese immigrants, he was named Kermit, a name his parents thought sounded pleasantly American. When they later learned that their son might be teased, they changed it to Eric. This experience shaped Dr. Wei's empathy for immigrants and vulnerable people trying to navigate unfamiliar cultures and systems. That commitment is embedded in who he is and how he leads. It's also at the core of Bellevue's mission.
The mission has been the same for the past 289 years, which is anyone who comes through the doors deserves high-quality, safe healthcare with a good experience, without exception. So we're not going to turn people away based off of the race, the language they speak, whether they're housed or unhoused, insurance status. Everyone deserves it.
Founded in 1736 to care for yellow fever patients, Bellevue is the oldest public hospital in the United States and the flagship of NYC Health Hospitals, the largest municipal health system in the country. As CEO, Dr. Wei oversees 11 hospitals, dozens of clinics, and care for more than 1 million New Yorkers every year.
And through every infectious disease crisis, through every natural disaster crisis, over the past 289 years, Bellevue has been at the center as an anchor, helping New York City respond to and recover from that. And so there's examples of Ebola, HIV, AIDS, most recently COVID.
Walking through the halls of Bellevue with Dr. Wei, it becomes clear this is not a CEO tucked away in the corner office with his head in the clouds of administration. He's hands-on, grounded, and close to the action.
Are they just like doing the cue where it's like substance?
Trained in emergency medicine, Dr. Wei insists on doing a shift in Bellevue's emergency department every week.
I'm just focused on the patients in front of me, teaching the residents, teaching the medical students, working with our APPs. It is refreshing in a way of like, this is why I got into medicine in the first place. It works both directions. I can't transform into an out-of-touch bureaucrat if I'm still seeing patients and still attached to the clinical piece.
Before his appointment as CEO, Dr. Wei served as Senior Vice President and Chief Quality Officer for New York City Health Hospitals, where he helped design programs not just for the patients, but for those who care for them. In 2018, he launched Helping Healers Heal, a peer support initiative for healthcare workers facing trauma and burnout. During the pandemic, it became a lifeline for thousands.
The people who choose to work at Bellevue, it's not because of money, it's not because of prestige, it's because of the mission. I want people to say, take me to Bellevue, not just when you're in a bad trauma, but you're choosing to go to Bellevue. I want this to be a kinder and gentler place to work and to receive care. Kindness is that core value that my parents instilled in me, that I'm instilling in my children.
Today, Dr. Wei and his wife, also a physician, are raising 3 children of their own. And while they've built successful careers, they've never forgotten their roots.
I think the striving for excellence, working hard, believing that you can move up and build something better for yourself and be better versions of yourself, but also not taking anything for granted and giving back, whether that's through teaching, whether that's through working for the safety net system to take care of some of the most vulnerable, and many of those are immigrants. For me, it's kind of this full circle of what I do every day is I see my family's story in the people that we're taking care of.
Dr. Wei says his vision is to honor this hospital's legacy of being a place of healing for all New Yorkers, regardless of income, and to foster a supportive and thriving environment for the medical professionals who make that mission possible. I'm Kyung Yoon for Asian American Life.
Asian Americans are the fastest growing ethnic population in the U.S., and yet they are largely underrepresented in traditional media. That's according to the Asian Media Initiative at the J School.
The media ecosystem is designed to uphold specific narratives and ideals. And Asian American immigrants have throughout our history here in the United States been kicked out. I am Kavitha Rajagopalan. I am the director of the Asian Media Initiative at the Center for Community Media, which is an independent research center founded within the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY. So we launched in 2022. Really the goal was to kind of render the AAPI newsrooms serving communities across the United States visible. It is a vast and growing ecosystem, and still a huge number of Asian Americans are not well served within the ecosystem. Undocumented people, caste-oppressed people, multiracial people. There is a massive, for example, Thai Dam community from Southeast Asia that was displaced here alongside Vietnamese and Cambodian communities. They have no community news. Pacific Islanders, they're desperately underserved within the Asian American ecosystem. Specifically, Micronesians, Marshallese. At this time, there are only 2 or 3 Marshallese newspapers in the entire country, or news sources, and they're a huge community. Nonprofit Quarterly, they partnered with Asian Media Initiative specifically to create and curate a 6-part series on the new Asian diaspora media. And the objective of this series is really to understand the capacity and strategies that Asian American community newsrooms were using to defend democracy. As the United States is entering a new chapter of anti-immigrant crackdowns and anti-immigrant law enforcement that is bleeding into a wider effort to rewrite the country's national story and further erase Asian Americans and our contributions alongside other communities of color. And I think we thought it was a really important opportunity to not only showcase the diversity of the ecosystem, but to give these publishers a platform to showcase their own communities. And so the series kicks off with a look at the Nepali American community, which is one of the fastest growing Asian American communities here in the United States, which is not only affected by the withdrawal of TPS status, temporary protected status, but also changing asylum policies, ICE raids, as well as anti-Asian violence. And so this outlet every single day is working with this community not only to provide resources and information, they have launched a fact-checking vertical where they're debunking misinformation and disinformation that's available online, and they're serving these communities as there's new rumors about, the loss of H-1B status, this new fee for H-1B visa holders. And then of course we have a piece from a Chinese language news outlet where they were required to keep their bylines off because they've experienced concerted violence, threats of violence, and digital harassment, coordinated campaigns of harassment. This remains the only Chinese language fact-checking site in the United States to this day. All of them, every single journalist that I work with, is unsafe now. They're on immigrant visas, their communities are under attack. Many of them, if deported, if they lose their status, would end up arrested, imprisoned, even tortured in countries of origin. They are doing it anyway. I think there's a deep-seated belief in our communities about the power of really Western-style journalism to uphold visibility in those communities and to advocate for civil rights and for civic engagement. And we have no idea what our communities here are going to look like, how many of us will be left behind after this latest immigration blitz. But we know, looking at our history, that our communities have always reconstituted, that even after 1924, even after the 1940s with the internment, even after post 9/11 with the mass deportations we saw then, people are here already. We're not going anywhere. And so to that end, we know that our community journalism isn't going anywhere either. And that gives me a lot of courage in the end.
The pride and joy of Korean culture is kimchi. And what you see happening here at the Korean American Family Service Center in Queens, New York is a kimjang. This is a communal kimchi making event that's been a tradition for thousands of years. I love kimchi! From the Seoul Kimchi Festival, where kimchi is made for charity every November, to sister festivals from Sydney to London, thousands around the world have put their hearts and hands into Korea's national dish.
You missed a spot.
Before all that hype, though, kimchi and kimjang was, first and foremost, a collective act of care and concern. These high school volunteers are making batches of kimchi for survivors of abuse in New York.
A lot of our clients are immigrants, so they bring their culture with them. A lot of them are in financial distress, so this is a way for us to give back to the community.
That's because no Korean meal is complete without the spicy, tangy crunch of kimchi. It can be made with radishes, cucumbers, scallions, even mustard leaves. The most popular kind is pechu, or cabbage kimchi. Before commercialization and technology made kimchi widely available, kimchi was made at home or in the village. The practice handed down for centuries by doing and not writing recipes down.
This is why UNESCO designated kimchi and kimjang, the communal act of making kimchi, an intangible cultural heritage of humanity for South Korea in 2013. That's when this UNESCO video was posted. It's recognition of a traditional knowledge, skill, or practice that represents a culture that's passed down through generations.
It's actually ritual, almost, and it's a Korean version of Thanksgiving.
Ryan Kim of Kimchi Market in New York City imports artisanal Korean pantry items. This kimchi seasoning block is one of them, a single-step alternative to the multiple-step process of preparing ingredients to make kimchi. As documented in the UNESCO video, the custom of making kimchi starts with quartered cabbage heads that are salted and left overnight to drain water from the vegetable. Then a marinade of chopped garlic, ginger, Korean red chili powder, and fermented shrimp paste is massaged between each leaf of the cabbage. The marinated cabbage is then stored for several days to begin fermenting, and the ideal temperature for fermentation is 55 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit.
The kimchi started because of a need for preserving vegetables. Korea has a long winters, and you need vegetables, so you want to preserve it, no refrigerator, and that's how kimchi started 2,000 years ago.
The oldest known text about Korea's Three Kingdoms period is the Samguk Sagi. This 50-book collection, finished in the 12th century, refers to the Goguryeo kingdom's practice of fermenting vegetables. This scholarly work also refers to the pottery that made successful fermentation possible, the ongi pottery that's still used today by traditionalists to ferment kimchi the way Koreans did centuries ago. This is the oldest known depiction of ongi from 1781.
Stored in crocks buried underground, following the traditional way, this kimchi will ripen through the magical process of fermentation.
This one is fairly recent. I bought it at a road stop on a road trip in Korea.
Ongi pottery is actually on display at the American Museum of Natural History in Manhattan.
When I was doing research with Korean shamans, and they would go from house to house and they would eat with the family, and they would say, you know, you can tell something about the moral quality of the family by how the food tastes, by how clean and pure the kitchen is, by the quality of what comes out of the earthen jars.
The shamans were onto something. Today's research proves kimchi has health benefits. The World Institute of Kimchi in South Korea confirms several kinds of lactic acid bacteria, or LAB, that have anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, and fat-burning qualities. Gut health has been linked to healthy skin, and one kimchi LAB is being harnessed for skincare.
My Nori face wash.
The founder of Nori, Susan Kim Choi, she was looking for a cleanser that would help deal with acne breakouts that were because of sweat or hormones or stress-related issues. And so she discovered this probiotic called L-Kimchi. And L-Kimchi is a lactic acid bacteria and probiotic that she discovered can decrease yeast, mold, and bacteria by 99.9%. And so she uses the key ingredient, which is white radish fermented with L-Kimchi, this probiotic, with a combination of just a total of 13 ingredients to create this cleanser, which then attacks and treats breakouts.
And it's fragrance-free. Kimchi's signature pungent smell, not in this application. But with 200 or so varieties of kimchi and plenty of dishes that feature it, kimchi pancakes, kimchi stew, kimchi with short rib barbecue. Kimchi lovers agree, on its own, it can be a feast for the senses. For Asian American Life, I'm Vivian Lee.
Now I can see why everyone loves kimchi. Well, at least I do. So now as we close the show, just a reminder to stop by the Sari exhibit right here at the New York Historical. It'll be up until April 2026. And if you want to learn more about all our stories, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Asian American Life. And don't forget to download the CUNY TV app so you could watch us on the go. I'm Ernabelle DeMillo. I'll see you next time.